footsteps of my King.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Idleman Unplugged. It's going to be a quick one, but a very important one. And the title is When Something Small is a Big Deal. When something small is a big deal. And I like what my friend Malachi O'Brien said, small hinges can open big doors. And I'm kind of recording this on the eve of just putting my book, Help I'm Addicted, on audio. And that should be available now on Audible. And hopefully we'll be able to add it to the church website soon as well, where you can download it for free. It's already there on print, not print, but ebook. But this topic is so important because when something small is a big deal, what I mean by that is we sometimes forget, we look at the big things, of course, you have to, the big sins or the big failings or the big fallings, you don't want to fall in those areas. And many times, many people do. And we have to get back up and fight again. But I've noticed over the years that God is more concerned, I would say, well, not more concerned isn't the right word, but concerned with obedience in the small things. And that leads to success in bigger endeavors. Let me unpack that a little bit. And again, small hinges, I've seen some small hinges open some enormous doors in the physical realm, but also in the spiritual realm. Being obedient in the small things that God calls us to. And that can be, let me give you a list here. I just went through a major transformation this week. I don't know how much I might share in a future podcast or sermons, but God is dealing with me in this area for sure. And one of the areas is I went to a few different pastors that, during COVID, we saw things differently. And I was holding some bitterness in and resentment. And just finally went to them, and not that I feel that those churches who stayed open and were bold were wrong at all, but you can be right in your reasoning and wrong in your attitude. And so just talking to them and getting some of that out, God, put that in my heart a while ago, and kind of just ignoring that. And it's not healthy when you ignore something that God wants you to do. So if we're holding on to a critical heart, an unforgiving heart, I'm not going to forgive them. I don't want to see them. Don't want to run into them. Or, if we're avoiding church just to avoid a certain person, that's probably not a good idea. If we see somebody at church and we kind of want to go the other way, and are we holding on to these little things that make a big difference? That's the key. That's the whole point of the podcast is when something small is a big deal. And other areas that God is calling you to, maybe, one thing I don't like about being a pastor is being transparent. But what other people like about me being a pastor is being transparent. It's kind of funny how that works, because they can say, hey, I'm not the only one that struggles. But even I was just talking to another pastor today. He asked me about health and fitness, or why do I try to eat good? It's hard, especially as I get older. The body falls apart even quicker. And, just explained my past, just how the body works, and how God's been convicting me in certain areas to take better care of this. And once you make those what seem to be small choices, big decisions or bigger things begin to open, and there's more peace and joy. And a lot of times when we're dealing with, I would even say depression, I've dealt with depression, not clinical depression necessarily, but depression, loss of joy, don't even want to go to church. And that's pretty sad when you're the preacher. Yeah. So, and often it was the little things that I didn't deal with. And one of them, again, I wanted to just pray on this a little bit more. But if you've been following the ministry, you've heard me talk about this. I write about it. But I fell back into sin. What I think is sin, because sin is doing something that God told you not to do. And before you cut us off here and unfollow, it had to do with what I call Christian crack. So I went back to Christian crack and drinking coffee again. Now, in saying that, the pastor I just talked to this morning, he says, well, I feel like happy when I do. And it's like, okay, well, to me, it affects me differently. It's a central nervous stimulant. So It's a central nervous stimulant. It's a drug. And so I get irritable. I get, not as patient. And those are not good things to have as a pastor, opposite the fruit of the Spirit. So if it doesn't affect you, fine. It's no big deal. But 90% of the people out there, it does affect them in a negative way. And God has been dealing with me on this issue for quite a while. And I can go back honestly, ask my wife. We're talking 20 years. I've had this on and off relationship because it'll get stressful to get busy, and I stop and get something to take the supposedly take the edge off, but it really ramps it up even more because now I'm high strung and just thinking of the people I might have hurt because of my quick temper or something, or I don't even know what the right word is. So anyway, that's how it affects me. So I'm not putting this on everyone, but if you become more irritable and anxious and mean to your spouse or your kids or meaner to others, it's not a good thing. And so there have been seasons where I remember I'd stop back in 2019 and just went like 6 months wondering why in the world did I ever start again? But the reason I did was because I was tired. I had a hard, I can remember it. I wasn't sleeping. I got up and had a lot to do, and I can have one now. It won't hurt. And well, 1 cup of coffee leads to, 2 or half a pot, and now you're on it every day. And I'd even go to Starbucks. I don't recommend that place. It's funny. The logo is a siren, SIREN, and a siren would lure through temptation, I believe, lure sailors away from, I guess, their navigation point and to an early death. So that's the logo there. But venti down to a medium, down to a small. And even recently I would get a short. What is it? How many ounces are in a short? 6 or 8? I don't know. And I would pour out half of it. And I'd say, come on, Lord, what's 4 ounces, And it was gratifying for a little while, but then I would, I didn't even read the Bible as well because, you're kind of irritable and you're kind of, over the place and I want to hurry up. I got stuff to do. And this, this morning, actually, I didn't have any. It's just so relaxing. And so again, the way it affects me, and like, come on, this is not a big deal, but I couldn't fast well for the last year. Here's this guy who did a 40-day fast, so mainly water, and would eat, drink some bone broth and juice and different things now and then. And then I can't even fast anymore because I'm being disobedient in this small area, right? Okay, I'm going to still have my cup of coffee in the morning, and then I'm going to fast throughout the day. And sometimes, I go a couple of days maybe, but I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the peace. I didn't have a joy because I knew I was being disobedient in this small thing. And again, it's not a small thing when God is convicting you because it makes you rude, or more, all the things: irritability, quick-tempered, hot-headed, impatient, all the things that aren't really good. This is actually a drug that does that. It puts your body in a fight or flight syndrome. And so, once that took place, the small victory, there was tons of joy, tons of peace. Man, it felt great. Actually, today I'm recording this later in the afternoon, early evening, and haven't even eaten today. And just water and just like, Lord, what do you want me to do now that, I feel much better? And, maybe a coffee fast is actually to actually think about this, a coffee fast for someone like me would be even better than a normal fast because I'm getting rid of the addiction. I'm getting rid of the stronghold. And and that would be actually more important because fasting is getting rid of the things that hold you. And so anyway, I don't know if that will help anyone. I was talking to somebody this morning too, and I shared that one of the highest amounts of feedback we get is centered around this area of caffeine and coffee. People coming in testimonies of, they're a better wife now, a better spouse, a better husband. And think about if you're getting, 400 or 500 milligrams of caffeine a day, the mental diagnostic manual, the manual of mental disorders that has a diagnostic manual that kind of goes over all the disorders. It has caffeine related disorders in there. You can actually, really trip out with too much caffeine. Of course, it ruins your sleep. It ruins all these things. It's a drug. I think there's a time and place for it. And, if I switch to something called probably purple tea. Purple tea is very high in antioxidants, very healthy, low caffeine, maybe 10 milligrams. Or I might have some green tea. But the reason tea is a lot different is there's something called L-theanine. L-theanine is an amino acid with the tea, so it actually gives your body a calming effect. So I can have a minimal amount of this caffeine, this calming effect, this tea, it does not even close to the amount of caffeine. I mean, you're probably 150 milligrams in a strong cup of coffee. That's way, way over the top there. So anyway, just want to share that with you. Maybe in your life, a small thing could be forgiving someone. Nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And maybe a lot of things are being held up because you're not forgiving that person. Or God wants you, what about if he's convicting you to improve your diet? To stop eating a bunch of garbage and eating too much and gluttony. What about, what might appear to be a small thing is actually a big thing, especially because it affects your future in a huge way, how we take care of our body and what that does to us for our future or doesn't do to us if we're trying to, be more healthy. If God's convicting you to fast, maybe. And what about if you're not fasting because you don't want to give up certain things? And what might seem like, at least I'm not looking at porn, people say, but what about if you're on pages on Instagram that are not that good, that's what they call softcore, or, they're not nude or they're not having sex, but what about if it's, this little thing that could turn into a big thing later? So I've just seen over the years and even in my own life, it's the little things, the Bible talks about the little foxes, are the ones that spoil the vine. The little things, the areas of the cracks in the armor, the little things that you don't fill in quickly, they can begin to consume you. Little things, even people fall back into addiction, right? It starts with a little thing. I'll just have one to relax. It's been a while, and that one takes them down. And so I just thought it'd be important to do a podcast for you. If God is convicting you about the small things, remember the small hinges open big doors. And I found as soon as I begin to be faithful in the small things, then God begins to even open doors that I didn't even know were open just yet, or begin to make his will even more clear. Or, I'm obedient in this area. Now I'll get direction and light for the next step. That's usually how it works. We can't fast forward. You can fast forward a video, but you can't fast forward God. It starts really with the small things, faithful in the small things, and he'll make you ruler of many things. So I don't know. Hope this helps some people. If there's anything in your life that, I've got to deal with this. Some of you might be listening. I guarantee you got to deal with, take care of your sugar habit. Sugar is a drug in the biochemical pathways in the mind. It's very addictive. Like cocaine or LSD. It runs along the same biochemical pathway. So does caffeine, by the way. So maybe God's convicting you about all this sugar you have to have and this hurting your body and getting back to better sleep. And yeah, it'll be difficult. There's withdrawals and it's challenging, but I'd rather be falling forward and getting things fixed and right before God than living in this area of like, okay, well, I'm having my sugar or my caffeine, or maybe some of you, it's a bottle of wine at night. And yeah, I probably should quit, but I'm not going to. And it's you can exist there, but if your joy is being hindered and quenched, the joy and the freedom from obedience is being quenched, especially on these little things. Obviously the big things do it, but I think the enemy uses small things to really hold us back in many areas as well. So again, hope you enjoyed this podcast. When something small is a big deal, or I might change the title to Small Hinges Open Big Doors, but I think we'll stick with the first one for now. All right. Thank you.